like flights and travel paths and positions that would all be relevant in terms of it being planar.
So which flight path? I mean, I'm not even contesting this. I'm just asking. So which flight paths would be impossible? Again, ignoring the sky.
Sydney to Hawaii.
Because of the speed at which the trip is like, or because of like the direction. I don't know. I'm not confused.
Are you asking like on a dual pole or on an AE or which one?
Not an AE map, just like not any specific map. Just like, okay, let's just say AE map. Something like the AE map. What specifically is incongruent?
By the way, I just went and grabbed. This is from Sydney to Hawaii. See how it's just like a straight line? So if you think of that flight, Sydney to Hawaii, and it takes, I don't know how, does it say on there the number of hours it takes? It does say does it say 5 hours, 22 minutes? Oh no, 4 hours, 5 minutes. So it says the time on that you'd be flying. And then if you compare that to this map, which I know I keep reposting, but if you were to go from Sydney, you'd have to like teleport from the lower right thing up to the upper left to have it just be a straight shot. That would only take 4 hours. If you were to fly around, the long way, that would be a much, much longer. If you were to go down around Antarctica to the south and then wrap up around, or if you were to go to the north way and wrap up around, it'd be, 20-hour flight or whatever. It'd be a really long flight.
I think the easier example is the straight line across the middle, Ecuador to Indonesia or something like that.
That too, yeah. If you can go on Ecuador and go directly west on the equator, follow the sun at the equinox and end up in Indonesia, then yeah, I kind of hear what percentage is saying. It's either, like, see, the AE would be ruled out in a lot of ways because you'd have to be turning, to go around in like a circle. So if you were going straight, then it would either be a dual pole with some effect like that or a globe, unless somebody has a third option that's viable of how that could work.
You would have to be like turning and not know that you're turning and traveling like 10 times the distance. So that seems unlikely too.
Interesting. I've never heard anyone bring this up specifically before the 24-hour something. Which is neither here nor there, to be fair, but.
Well, the Southern Stars were always discussed, and there were certain problematic components. I don't think. I think it's like a natural unfolding of all this. I don't really think that. Well, the TFE thing, I suppose, did kind of shed light on it more, and then them going kind of did give more firsthand. At least people feel like that because people they know and people that we've known went, rather than just other videos out there on YouTube or whatever. In terms of people being there.
Right. So, I mean, I'm talking specifically about this this travel route thing, this flight route. I mean, I have heard like some stuff about like the flight routes before, but then I've heard stuff which seems to line up better with the A model stuff, which lines. Like I've heard one thing which I guess lines up better with the globe before the 24-hour sun. This seems to be one of those which lines up better with the globe than the A model. But is it solely because of speed, or is it? I get like the speed and the distance would be a much larger if it were the AE map, and that doesn't match the flight time, if I'm correct. So is it only speed, or is there something about the direction as well? Maybe I'm missing something.
Well, which one are you referring to? Because there's a couple things. Like the AE has an equator that's a circle. So if the equator is not a circle, then the AE that's just a fatal death blow to the AE, essentially, unless somebody has some other way to solve that. But like if you can track a straight position on the ground during the equinox when the sun is directly above and you're making a straight line, the sun's making a straight line, then the equator is not a circle. So if that's the case, then that right there, which is just a fatal problem for the AE map, because the AE map defines the the equator as a circle.
But can we make a straight line without reference to the sun though? Like without reference to anything in the sky to like say to make like a true dead reckoning.
Yeah, you could make a dead straight line without looking at the sun at all, and then you could measure the distances to the poles and then know that you're in the center of two poles. That would be one option. Or you could just make a straight line, but if we're trying to relate it to something in the system. Like I'm saying, if you threw the sun out of the equation and you just made a straight line, well, then what are you making? Like I'm saying, if you threw the sun out of the equation and you just made a straight line, well, then what are you making a straight line to or from? You know, like why would it? What is the equator? Is what that brings into the question.
Exactly. I'm just all I'm trying to do is trying to see if there's a way to. I'm just brainstorming, trying to see if there's a way to do it without referencing the sky. Because honestly, I think the sky could be anything. Like, here's the thing: like, if in the heliocentric model they have to literally have metaphysical concepts like space and time merging and bending, then I don't think there's just going by that standard. I don't think there's a problem with having the subjective appearance of the sky to each individual do some weird geometric stuff. We're not even bending time here. We're just bending how things are appearing to each person. So if we could just remove this, that's why I was saying if we just remove the sky and deal with the geometry of the earth. I'm not even categorically opposed to this Pac-Man thing or anything. I just feel like we're jumping the gun a bit to saying that that's the only other option. Or not Pac-Man necessarily, but something like a warping, a wraparound of the earth.
A bending and warping of space-time?
Here's the thing. It's not, as long as you can do it in a video game, it's not categorically illogical. For example, something that's categorically illogical, which you couldn't even do in a video game, is make a square circle. But you could have like something appear to each user as if they're traveling straight and they end up Pac-Manning without them knowing it. You could easily program that in a video game. So it's not illogical. I'm not putting that off the table. I'm just saying I feel like I feel like if we're still only making that claim because there's still some reference to the sky, then I feel like we're jumping the gun. If you can establish it purely on the ground using like some means of dead reckoning without referencing the sky or the sun, then I think that would be then after that was established that it's impossible to do using by those means without referencing the sky, then you could obviously entertain the other models.
And you have to ask the question, what is the purpose of the two? Like, what is the purpose of having the sun go around like 360 around your head in Antarctica and the same in the North Pole? Like, in the design itself, what would be the purpose of that?
Maybe the purpose is that it's another test, another one of God's tests to test your fidelity, your faith.
Well, it makes sense if you have two poles in an Earth system, and the sun is rotating around one for 6 months and the other for the other 6 months, and you get the seasons, you get variety, between the two, like a pulsating magnetic field that's shifting back and forth, like phasing, like a phasing where you phase left, phase right.
So it's
And
sort
then-
of seesaws. There's seesaws between the north and the south. That like it circuits around the south, and then it seesaws back to the north.
Yeah, which I've often posted these electric field, which you guys have probably seen these, but I just took an electric field and then I added like this. If you this thing I posted, it's like an electric field circuit, and then I just added the 24-hour suns and the stars at equator. So I mean, this is the part of it that wouldn't surprise me if this is what the sky is, considering it basically looks like that, and that is like a stereographic projection of a sphere. So if the celestial sphere is actually spherical coordinates, but in a stereographic, meaning two poles, system, just like an electric field circuit, and like those ferrocells that you guys have seen as well. So we can replicate that. If this whole sky is moving in the same grid lines of an electric field circuit, that would make a lot of sense, just in terms of the whole realm is electrical, and the sky is no exception, and you have these vortex and a counter vortex. And the duality thing in this world, like you have your left eye, right eye, male, female, dark, light, sun, moon, day, night, hot, cold. I mean, up, down. You have like all of these dualities. Male, did I say male, female? Yeah, there's just they're like endless dualities. White,
It
black.
It does look like the face of an owl,
Yep, like a left eye, right eye thing.
like the superb owl.
Yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me if this guy was doing that instead of like a merry-go-round around the North Pole, basically, the way the AE map has it, which doesn't account for the straight line at the equator, doesn't account for the southern stars, and doesn't account for the sun in the south. And I hear the point, Baboon, what you were talking about. Now your name is Babby Boone. Arul was your original name, yeah, but now your name is Babby H. Boone, PhD. By the way, I think Tony, PhD, thought you were a PhD. Remember that day you were talking with him? He's like, whoa. He's like, I greatly respect I greatly respect you. That was funny. He totally thought you were a PhD, dude. Just because you had it. That just shows how much he appeals to credentials. All you got to do is type it in on Discord, and he totally treats you differently. He's like, well, with all your experience and your knowledge, I would certainly, he was saying, like, I would defer to you on these topics. It was a trip.
It's pretty fun.
But, well, what you were saying, though, like, yeah, this comes down to how the sky moves and then how the ground is laid out. And what you're saying is, like, yeah, if you threw the sky away, I mean, I would say the thing about the sky, it's not just individual for each person. Like, it is to a degree, like, you have apparent positions, but the thing is that there's one GP that is universal. So it's not like the star. I mean, it might appear slightly different due to like refraction or due to how the sky looks to us, like the curved visual space idea, but it does seem like the sky is like a grid of the ground, which is why celestial navigation works. Like celestial navigation wouldn't work if it was all just like that we all had a random TV screen, basically, where the positions were all just like apparent, whatevers for different people. The thing is it works because it's like a grid system with the ground positions, and that's why celestial navigation works. So if that's the case, and the ground is related to the sky in terms of like a grid of as above, so below, of where the positions of the stars move upon the ground, but so I would say that that is a thing. But even if you wanted to throw that all out, it would still just be the question of, I guess if you threw the sky out, it would just be how are the continents laid out, and then the paths and travel and all that.
I think that's what should be dealt with first, like just the ground, and then the sky can be dealt with. The only reason is I'm not obviously positive. I literally don't know anything about geography or even how the sky is laid out according to any of the models with enough detail. But just on a logical level, it is possible that there could be different GPs for each person depending on how it's rendering to them. Not that it's just completely random, but just it's based on some mathematical principle which relates one objective, layout with all the individual subjective layouts, like in a mathematical way, though, not a complete free for all. So,
yeah, do you know what like a lenticular lens is? It's a type of lens where if you those things where you can tilt it and it looks like a different character, like you'll have like Superman and then you tilt it, it looks like Batman and then goes back to Superman. It's like there's like two images.
Yeah.
There's like tilting little toys that they put in cereal boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
It almost looks like like shifts. Those are lenticular lenses where it has you can have like two actual images on the canvas, and then you have like the plastic like redirects the light, so you get like selective activation of some part of the background depending on which way it's tilted. Now that is an interesting idea, and Jeremy brought it up, and the idea that the sky is like a lenticular lens effect, where depending on what position you are, you're going to be getting, just like Superman or Batman, when you tilt it, you're going to get you're a specific lenticular manifestation of the sky, which is interesting in and of its own way. But I don't know. The thing about the GPs, though, is that you'd have to think about like the Big Dipper. When the Big Dipper is at a particular position, like above Canada or wherever you would be, that you would be right above it, right below it, You'd have to, if there was, even if it is a lenticular lens effect, if everybody in the world started walking from different places to that star in the Big Dipper, like let's say the Handle star in the Big Dipper, you would all end up in the same place. You know what I mean? So if that's the case, and if that Big Dipper star is only above one position on Earth, then it's like it is like a grid that's locked to the Earth, you know, like because otherwise, like you could be under 5 different places where you say, hey, I'm under the Big Dipper star. No, I'm under it. No, I'm under it. You know, and then if you all walk to different places, if you all walk towards it, you'd all end up in different places. That's the difference.
Well, it could be the case that like if you were to just keep following it, it shifts gradually such that it obviously ends up at like one place by the time you switch from like your grid to like your personal grid to another grid. It's all going to be happening in an analog fashion. There's not going to be any jump in between. But if you could it could be the case that again, if there was some means of truly dead reckoning, you would end up in a different place. But I'm not sure. I'm still asking. I'm genuinely. Is there some way of dead reckoning without any reference to the sky?
Yeah, you could just. I mean, in theory, yeah, you could plot. By the way, I just posted there that shows the idea of a lenticular lens. You see how all those different like eyeballs are looking, and then they're seeing a different portion of that background image, or they're getting the red arrow, the purple, the green. You know, they're forming a different combination. So it's kind of like, in a way, maybe what you're referring to. Yeah, I mean, you could draw a straight line on the ground. That would take the work to do that. I mean, that would be the question. But
because like what you're saying is like if everyone just started walking towards it, but again, in this system, it wouldn't just be a free fall or random. They would be mathematically correlated such that by the time you switch from your initial little subjective frame to the next one, it's all just going to smoothly lead you to the same place. Just like kind of a similar concept to someone, the person who had the wraparound concept was saying. There would never be a point where like half your body was missing and half your body, to you personally, and this is logically possible, it could be the case that you would always just see your full body. But like the person who has the actual objective code, he would know the point at which you're switching from one point to like wrapping, right? But to you, it could always seem as if you were just doing, going in a straight line. Also, it's not off the table to me that they could, with the 24-hour sun is off. That's not off the table that could in some way just be fake to me. It doesn't look like the one in the north as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know. I feel like anyone who's denying the 24-hour sun at this point, is just not in touch with reality, or just hasn't like looked into the subject deep enough. Just like basically ignorant.
It's cool for you to say that, but I don't think that's it's just your subjective opinion.
Sure, but it's my subjective opinion based off of good evidence. Like there's a lot of videos, and Gio is the man to talk to if you want to get like a short list of videos that show, the sun in that position in Antarctica. And even before the TFE, I was absolutely convinced that there's a 24-hour sun. It's very, very hard to fake all of the videos.
Look, there could be. At the same time, however, the ones I have seen, maybe I've not seen all of them. Like the one that all these guys took when they went there. It doesn't look like the ones from the north. There doesn't seem to be that progressive darkening and lightening of the sky as the sun goes up and down.
Yeah, I had trouble with that too at first. I'm like the highs and the lows of the sun. I'm like, well, maybe it's where they're at. But then I started thinking about it. It's like, well, they're nowhere near the South Pole. So I did struggle with that one.
Yeah, the closer you are to the pole, the more the sun will go straight. The less like rise and
the less up and down it would do, and the less the light would change, right? The brightness effect. But I would expect it at the bare minimum as the sun dropped for the brightness to drop with it.
It
at
does.
least a little.
It does. Here, I just
Does
posted two. Yeah, just posted 2 images. Take a look at them.
Oh.
Here, let me.
Oh yeah, it's subtle.
Sorry, let me repost them to where they pop up. Like that's the brighter. and
It
that's the
gets
dark.
colder too if you talk to Witsit.
That's when the sun is in the south versus when it's moving closer up to the north on the top picture versus the one on the, because that mountain is like fair, pretty south. Like just to the right of that mountain, I think is south. So yeah, this sky does change. Plus, you'd have to find a northern one at 79 degrees north to really compare it. You can't compare ones that are at like 73 or other.
That's a fair point.
And you gotta trust they're at that location. So it's like, oh.
But
Witsit, did you know? Witsit, did you know?
Hold on, I'll rule. Let me. First of all, I don't know if Witsit still is Mike. He might just be listening. But if you're gonna ask him something, I don't know if he's there. He was at the conference and he was in here talking before. If he is, he can open his mic, obviously. But or if you want to ask him after that, if he's there. I just want to post this real quick. I'll rule. Do you see here? See through the sun path when it's in the north, it's like circling around Polaris, which is why it arcs that way. And in the south, even at the equator. I just posted that image. It already starts arcing to circle around the southern rotation, and it follows those same circular sun trails. So like the 24-hour sun effect can already be seen at the equator as it's arcing the other way. Like it's not doing the concentric circles out from the center the way the AE map would.
I understand. I've seen another explanation for that. I mean, to be fair, I'm not sure I fully even understood it, but it had to do with like if you like due to perspective, like just the what's that thing called, the what is the opposite thing of the sun? Like, you know how you have the sunset on one side and you have another fake sunset on the other side. What's that called?
Anti-hodal type thing.
Anti-corpuscular rays.
Anti-corpuscular rays. Yeah. So at one point I thought I understood it, but I'll be completely honest. I don't think I fully understood how by having the opposite mirror effect on the other side you could get it. I'd have to look back at the video. But at one point, I did think I clocked it and understood it, but I'm not sure I do at this particular moment. So, not going to make any claims. Also, just on the sky darkening and that GIF that someone, Shubil, posted, it's not darkening as much as the ones I've seen in the north. But again, you made a decent point. I don't know the latitude, so I couldn't really.
No,
it's only very.
If you look at one that's at like 72 or 73, it also depends on the day. Like, is it right on the solstice or is it off the solstice? But yeah, if you see those ones in the north where the sun goes really down close to the horizon, that's different because then it's like almost setting or it's getting near setting. Either because you're off center from 80 degrees, like you might be at 73 or 72 or some other degree, or it's a time of the year when the sun is like south of the Tropic of Cancer, meaning it's not all the way at 23.4 degrees, from the equator. It might be at 22 or 21 or 20. So if the sun goes way down closer to the horizon based on those conditions, then yeah, the sky gets much darker and it will be quite a bit different. You'd have to find one where you're at the summer solstice for the north and you're at 80 degrees, 79 north to get that comparison. Even at that, they still are probably slightly different environments in terms of the conditions that might give some differences. Like Antarctica is obviously massive ice, whereas the north, like they claim it's just water. And there's also the claims of like some kind of mountain there, but that would be like nothing that anyone's ever really shown.
I don't know if there's any place that you can go that has land that's 80 degrees north.
Yeah, I looked it up. That's about the furthest you can go legally without going beyond, Yeah, you can go.
Because Barrow, Alaska is like 71 degrees north. That's the northernmost point of America. I don't know if there's anything. I don't even think there's any Canadian territories that are 80 north. I don't know if there's something on the European, Russian side. I think it's all water there, no?
Well, you can go to 78.5 degrees in Svalbard, Norway. So that's 78. That's like these are like some of the northernmost, settlements that you can actually like go to. That's like a city of some sort. I don't know. Going beyond that is a question, but of what what happens if you try to do that in terms of the military and restricted. I know some people say you can just go up there. I mean that kind of tough, but I mean you could go to 78 and film the 24-hour sun there.
82 degrees latitude. There's a place called Alert. That's the northernmost settlement in the world, in Nunavut, Canada.
That's it. That's at 82. That you can. Oh yeah, I'm finding the same thing. Alert 82.5 degrees north. It says it has no permanent civilian population, with residents serving on rotating days of tours of duty. And then it says for permanent civilian settlement, the highest is the Svalbard, Norway. Longyearbyen. Longyearbyen. That's funny. They call it long year. Like the 24-hour sun. Yeah, so is there any footage from there of the 24-hour sun to compare to where they were at Union Glacier?
I'm finding some videos, but they're not. It's not like time lapses. It's just like just showing videos of it at midnight.
Gio, do you have like a
Svalbard is
compiled
where
list?
that. Did you know that Svalbard is where that doomsday seed shelter is that Bill Gates built? Did you know that, Gio?
No. Did I know that Bill Gates has something built there? No, I don't think so.
You know about the seed vault, right?
I wouldn't be surprised. I think I've heard of that. Is that where it is?
That's what it's saying here, that it's Svalbard Global Seed Vault. Oh my God, there's a coyote in my backyard.
What were you saying, percentage? Were you saying something before that?
I was asking, do you have like a compiled list of all those videos that you found prior to TFE, for people that are still kind of like convinced that it's fake or whatever, just like that you hit them with?
I have several of them saved. Yeah, some of the. I have like a little playlist that I saved them on. Yeah.
I met a few flat earthers that are just like convinced it's not true and stuff like that. If you can like just tag me to one of your comments, or if you have like a list saved that you could just like send me, that'd be great.
Well, I do think it's true that a lot of people with the TFE thing, they don't really know how much other footage. Like I've asked some people, I've been like, hey, do you know there's a ton of other footage from Union Glacier that was not Duffy or McToon or any of those guys, And often they'll say no, they didn't even know those existed. Like, for example, in 2021, there was a solar eclipse from Union Glacier. And I showed that to Whitsitt, and I think Whitsitt said he shared it with Jaron before they went. And they're in a similar, like, how when they, in the TFE thing, they went further out to that other spot where they could see the sun where it didn't go behind the mountain. Well, that's where they were for there was a good amount of people there. Like I can post that one. It's kind of a famous solar eclipse from Union Glacier. And that company is a pretty well-known company that like they have trips all around the world that you can go on, to like Greenland or South Africa. You can go different places to see eclipses and different celestial phenomenon. So that was one of them. So it was just like, people that went on it, and there's like a ton of cameras all lined up, and then the eclipse is happening when the sun is in the south as well. It's like people probably don't know that even exists. I mean, we went over a lot of these on here, but who knows who people maybe haven't seen that or weren't around at the time. So yeah, a lot of people don't even know how many other videos there are from Union Glacier, and they think it's like only TFE and McToon and these guys all faked it or whatever. They just like, do they know like there's a ton of other footage from that site? And then you'd have to claim that all of those are fake too, which when we've gone over them, there was really nothing that anyone spotted out or that we could find that seemed fake. So
yeah,
they're like bloggers, vloggers, people going skydiving. They're just like all kinds of different people. It's not like the astronauts that are like clearly lying and acting. So
yeah, I remember like one was that Asian woman that was like going on, expedition or whatever. Kim, I forget her name. Yeah, I remember. I think people just are ignorant to all these, other videos.
I mean, I've got like 8 or 10 of them that I saved, but There's a bunch of others that are just out there though, like that I didn't save them all.
Mhm.
But yeah, it did take me a while to find a lot of them. So it would make sense that other people don't just have them readily available. Although they could just go search like Union Glacier on
Union
YouTube
Glacier,
or
exactly.
Venmo or anywhere, yeah, and find them all. As long as they're still up, which I assume a lot of I haven't seen any of these that I have saved being taken down. So
Yeah.
I've got ones going as far as back 2014. There's like a guy is like a professor for some college in Europe, or like, and he's there's only like a few tents. Like it's that same mountain, the same Union Glacier, but yeah, and it shows the sun in the south.
Why were they down there in 2014?
I'm on the playlist now. I can post it. This one's the solar eclipse. This is the 360 solar eclipse, but there's also one from that Andreas Moeller guy, same guy. He's only got 240 subscribers, but if you look on he also has the one that's not the 360. But yeah, that one's the eclipse. It's this other one that you're talking about. I'll post it as well. Professor Chris Cherney, University of New South Wales, and Intrepid Science, it's called. And I don't know when they actually were there, but this video says it was 2012, actually. So actually 2012, December. But that's the one that, and if you go to near the end of it, it doesn't really show it until the end, the last like 30 seconds. It's clearly Union Glacier with all those tents and the mountain, and then he pans up and you see the sun in the south shining behind the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it.
And then there's the 124-hour sun that I found from there. Have you seen, you probably saw that one, the only other 24-hour sun that I think exists from Union Glacier, at least before the TFE, which is, I'll post it. It's this one. You've probably seen it when we were going through it.
Probably.
It looks like it's like a dude. It's like a skydiving company. It looks like a guy just put a 360 camera down on the ground, but it's at the timestamp there. This is all stuff that I'd found before they went, but yeah. That's the only 24-hour sun, like full 24-hour sun from Union Glacier that I'm aware of before TFE. It's the only one, and I found it, before they went. Otherwise, there are a bunch of other ones that either show the sun going, like moving behind the southern mountain, or the solar eclipse with the sun in the south, or all these other ones where I found the sun in the south. But this is the only actual 24-hour footage that seems to exist that I'm aware of, before they went down there and grabbed, in terms of getting more actual 24-hour footage.
Mm-hmm.
Just from Union Glacier. I mean, there's obviously other ones claimed from other parts of Antarctica, but yeah, I hear you, dude. A lot of people haven't seen a lot of these other, like if they're gonna pluck apart and think that Duffy's whatever, they would have to, I guess, then claim that all of these are fake too. And there's a lot of them. There's like hundreds, if not thousands, of just videos from Union Glacier, and a lot of them do show the sun in the south. Not all of them though. I mean, some of them, like that's what I did. I was scanning through tons of them to actually to see the sun in different positions.
Yeah.
It's just like
some good work that you put in, some good hours.
Wouldn't it be like for the government, whoever the fuck, to just like have an actual live stream just constantly just there all the time? Like, why can't they just do that? That would just put it to bed. I mean, at least somewhat. People could say that.
Dude, why, man?
This is a whole like speculation theory, but dude, it is possible in my mind that whatever's going on in our world with like whether we're a reset culture or there's some huge brain wipe that went on because we don't know where we came from. We don't, you know what I mean? Just the modern era, like what is actually going on. But even removing all that, dude, this is on the table in my mind that the globe is a deception. And then the Gleason's AE map is also a deception that is like a 2.0, which they knew would collect everyone that would question the globe, would then go into the AE map thing. It is on the table for me that was part of their whole plan, that they had that as the backup with the no 24-hour sun claim and everything that goes along with it, with the Gleason's kind of dartboard type layout. And I mean, I haven't mapped the whole Earth, so I'm not making claims with you. I have not mapped the whole Earth to say for sure. I'm not asserting. I'm just saying it's on the table for me that AE map is a deception 2.0 that they kind of had ready to sell to, knowing people would question the globe, to put them into that. And then there was like purposeful limited access to Antarctica during the, especially after World War II, 50s, 60s, 70s. Like you couldn't go to Antarctica in the 70s, even if you had the money. 80s, you couldn't do it. 90s, like they didn't have trips at all that any civilian could take, as far as I'm aware. Now, maybe if you were part of the military or you had some ability to go there, but it was like very limited access for many years until 2014. That was the first like 24-hour sun footage that ever existed, as far as I'm aware of, that ever popped on the scene. So there was none of that in the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Pretty weird. So there's like this weird limited access thing to it. I'm just saying this is all on the table for me. And that 2014-15 happens to be, now whether the flat earth thing, you know, with that Gleason's map was like purposefully rolled out, or whether it just naturally people started talking about the earth being flat, whatever the case may be, that then it would like activate their Deception 2.0, which would be the no 24-hour sun, the Gleasons, all that, which would then, you know, now like again, whether it was rolled out or not, whether it was co-opted or rolled out, it would be one of those, because it clearly was a co-opted, I would say. And then the whole no 24-hour sun and getting all these people onto that to then, and this would imply that maybe Duffy's in on something in this case, or he just happened to do it. But eventually people went and found out there is a 24-hour sun there more definitively. And then now that would be the goal, to try to destroy the Deception 2.0, the Gleason's thing with the sun and all that, and then have everyone go back to the globe. You know, still hiding the actual real thing, what the Earth actually is. So I'm just saying that's all on the table for me, that the limited access and the way this is rolled out was actually purposeful.
Do you think Dubé was in on it though when he talked about there's no 24-hour sun in Antarctica in his videos?
Well, whether let's say he wasn't, okay, if he is just some operative, then you could say yes from everything I just said there. But let's say he wasn't, he's just a dude who got sparked into this and found Robotham and all these old writings and things. Because, dude, there's like a stack of things that you find when you come to Flat Earth, you know? There's Robotham and there's Lady Blunt and there's, you know, some of the writings. Of course, there's the AE map and the Gleason's map. There's only limited things, you know, that you get. It's like a little package in a way, and you just get that stuff. Because I know that I looked into Flat Earth in 2004, 2005 back then, and that's what I got. I got the Flat Earth Society. There's like this little package of information you get, and I'm saying from the perspective that Eric Dubé is not some kind of operative, he could have actually just, I'm not really saying either way right here. I'm just saying it's possible that he could have just came upon that information. And then when you see the Gleason's map and you think of a flat earth like that, and you think of how the sun would move, it implies that there's no 24-hour sun in the south. So whether Eric Dubé was just like duped basically by the materials and then went with it and kind of sold it, you know, along with the fact that there was very limited access of footage and of data from Antarctica to be able to confirm, it does kind of fuel the conspiracy, as it were. It fuels your mindset. Oh, there must not be one there because there's no good footage of it, which is kind of true. And the first footages that came out of it in 2014, 15, 16 were pretty sketchy. You know, there weren't really better ones until like 2019, 2020. So that's kind of weird too, you know, but I'm just saying it's conceivable that Eric Dubé just bought the propaganda and the information that he found and repeated it and put it in his stuff, and then just thought there wasn't one there because of that, if he's not like an actual purposeful plant, because the information was there with the map, the model. It even says on Gleason's map in the lower right-hand corner that on the winter solstice in December, it's like perpetual darkness at 80 degrees south. These guys were at 80 degrees south, and it's the opposite of perpetual darkness. And even when they were at 53 degrees south, you could see the southern sky was lit up for basically 24 hours when they were there. They saw, you know, you guys remember that. So, I mean, that doesn't look like perpetual darkness. So why Gleason's even says that, you know, could be part of it. And then if Eric Dubé just kind of bought it and repeated it, and that could be the case.
You know, 9 months before the TFE, Dubé made a video talking about 1800s models that had 24-hour suns in the south.
What's his position now, though? Is he in the position that it's fake, or has he done like a video since then?
The Lady Blunt writings. Are you talking about Lady Blunt? Because she refers.
No. I'm saying after the TFE, has Dubé released a video talking about 24-hour sun? Does he claim it's fake, or does he claim? What's his position on it?
No, I heard you. I was responding to Travis saying that Lady Blunt does talk. It might be what you're talking about. Is Eric Dubé referencing Lady Blunt, who I saved a few. I'll post them. I saved a few of her from her book, Zetetic Astronomy, which is a different one than Robotham's.
That sounds right. Yeah, Lady Blunt.
Here, I'll post them. she specifically says this is the two poles, which also looks like an electric circuit that in the little diagram. And then I'll just post all of these because these all have some different little section of her book. This one's highlighted. Sorry for spamming the chat for a second, but I'm just going to post them all individually. And then this one too. And then lastly, I'll post which book it comes from. Zetetic Astronomy, which has the same name as Robothams, but it's actually a different book. This is Lady Blunt and Albert Smith. But yeah, she talks specifically about a 24-hour sun. And she was a flat earther, of course. So yeah, the sun's motion north and south. And that, I think Eric Dubé did talk about her or put a video just to kind of like give it the chance that they're. But to answer you, Jake, I thought Eric Dubé thought it was fake last I had heard, but I don't really know if he has an updated position, but I think he was questioning that the TFE was fake as far as I remember. But I don't know what his like final position is. He might just be like in the middle on it. I'm not sure. But I think when it first happened, I'm pretty sure he was saying that they faked it. He made at least one video saying that they are Freemasons or shills or whatever.
Yeah, I think he got caught up in that that little green screen glitch on Duffy's coat or whatever during the first 24 hours afterwards. Everybody was like, "Oh, busted," but it was not really it's just part of how that system works.
Right. Yeah, I think he did a video at the beginning where like the few things that were going around. Yeah, that was one of them, and they just kind of like jumped to it, like, "Oh, looks like they faked it," kind of thing. Yeah, which is kind of concerning of his discernment if that's what he just jumped to that quickly without actually having more to go off, if that's what he's going to claim. I mean, whether it was planned or not, it definitely is the rhetoric, like following Duffy's TFE thing, is that, oh, there's no flat Earth model. It's impossible not to be flat, has to be globe. So whether that's like a plan from the controllers, like they had Deception 1.0 globe, Deception 2.0, the AE with no 24-hour sun type of a layout. I mean, if that's the case, then this would be kind of what they wanted, was to try to just squash it out, entirely and just get everyone back to the globe essentially. Or stop people's interest, because if it is something more complex, like a more complex dual pole system, if that's actually what the truth is, then they know that would take a huge amount of money and effort and time to even be able to put all that together. Like it's easier just to like see an AE map on the internet and be like, that's it. And then, but it's harder to actually either map the Earth or measure distances along oceans or to do anything that would really be needed. And they know it would take a huge team and probably a decade and millions of dollars to really do all of that. And they may just have figured that no one's going to do that. I don't agree with them. I think we are going to do that. And that's what they're going to be surprised. But they figured probably nobody would. And so if it was set up like that, that would be potentially the agenda, like sell the fake globe, have an AE map that has that's not actually what the Earth is. If it's not what the Earth is, then, and then have kind of the limited access to Antarctica, hold no 24-hour sun, everyone that got on board, if they knew that flat Earth would blow up, and then they would have this kind of way to try to kind of pull the plug on it. I don't think it really had that effect necessarily, but I think probably everybody would agree it definitely had some shifting effect though. I mean, it kind of broke up, like there's people that think TFE is fake now. There's that, which then just makes things more problematic, especially if the truth is that there is one there. Then of course it makes it more problematic because now you got a bunch of people saying it's fake, which just totally discredits everything linked to flat Earth. Like if there's flat earthers that are saying it's fake, but anybody can just take a flight and go see it, what bigger blow to the reputation of what that person calls a flat earther if there's a phenomenon that happens of a 24-hour sun that anybody can pop a flight and go see. It just means that you would certainly write those people off as either just being totally wrong or just insane or just deluded or something, to where they would have zero reputation. So
there's a couple of things that are happening, right? Because you guys are, I mean, probably rightly are saying that if you go to the south and you don't even get near the South Pole, but you just like get relatively close, you can start to see the star trails and the arc of the sun go in the opposite direction. So if that were the case, then why? I'm just like zooming out. If you look at the rhetoric, no one was like saying that before the 24-hour sun. That in and of itself proves that the AE map is not possible.
No, we absolutely were, dude. We've talked about that a bunch of times over the years. In fact, here I'm grabbing a GIF real quick. There's this guy, Rig, just RIG. It's not Riggs with an S, but Rig. He's a Glober guy. He hangs on Gen Pandas a lot. But dude, way back as early as the 24/7 Flat Earth server, back in like 2018, like in those earlier days, he used to always post me. I'm trying to find it real quick. He used to always post this, and we would laugh and joke about it because obviously to him it was a globe proof, but it was a problem with the AE map, and we debated it, and there generally were like no rebuttals other than maybe like a lensing effect that people would say to account for it, but like the sun arcing the other way. Here it is. It's a ridiculous because he just took an AE map and then drew on it with some, paint crayons. But the sun rises south of east and sets south of west. It makes this dramatic arcing pattern that is it's like anti-arc, like it's the opposite arc of the north. And that is, the yellow line there, like where it says SW, that first curved yellow line. Essentially, that's like the path of the sun. Like, because if you were down somewhere in the south looking north, the sun rises like significantly south of west and then south of east, and then set significantly south of west. It makes this completely arcing pattern towards the southern pole, just like the stars do. So yeah, dude, I mean, we've debated this. It's been discussed.
No, I mean,
generally, it was brought up as like, hey, the AE map is false, guys. Because of this, it doesn't match circling around the north all the time. It actually arcs the other way in the south, therefore Earth globe. So the Globers would use it. And then the flat earthers generally never had like a viable explanation other than like a lensing. You may have heard like the idea of like a lensing effect, but then that gets into the issues with the GP.
I've heard of the one thing I did hear was like the thing I alluded to earlier was the anti-crepuscular ray thing. But honestly, again, like I've forgotten how that exactly works. So what I'm going to do is not even to prove that, not even to say or assert that that's what's happening, but I'll come back later someday, and after having fully understood it and be able to steelman it and just put it forward if it is viable. Not saying that it's happening, but just like I'll come back with a
No, I hear you though. Anti-crepuscular rays are very interesting, and they are kind of related to the arc and anti-arc phenomenon. By the way, this real quick, this is what people used to post as like one idea. If you have like a lens that creates that effect, which is interesting, if you did have a lens that could kind of arc them the other way. But again, if you move that lens or you move your position, you would get different arcings, which means you would get different GPs. So that, like I said, it kind of funnels back into the GP issue, because that would mean that like they're all just apparent, and you're getting this different warping or different arcing. Essentially, also this image, I'm just in my folder. This is like not even flat Earth related, but it just, if you would imagine that artwork of that being the AE map, and then see again that anti-arcing, that is kind of what it does on the Earth. Essentially, it's like it arcs the other way. But in terms of the crepuscular and anti-crepuscular, yeah, I mean, I hear where you're thinking of that, but wouldn't that be similar to like an arc and an anti-arc type thing? See, on that last one I just posted, that artwork, imagine that outer circle, which would be like the idea of the 24-hour sun, and that'd be the idea of this, southern area. And then that arcing the other way, which would, if you're looking north, that would be the sun rising south of east, setting south of west, making that arc pattern, the anti-arc pattern, which is what it does. Like the stars do that as well. But if you were to then move that thing, imagine that on that artwork, if you were to move it around the rim, that's the only thing that could sort of describe it on an AE map. But like I said, you just then get into where you'd have like thousands and thousands of different GPs for all those stars when you're in the south. And like I made this image the other day of the southern star rotation. Well, I didn't take the photograph, but I just randomly I just put a little circle like Union Glacier. So like if they're at Union Glacier, they're at one point of that rotation. So that rotation can't be moving around the outside and then be at one point that's on the star field. So yeah, it's just the difference between those, whether the sky is fixed to the ground or whether, if it's just reflecting or moving. But yeah, I mean, that anti-arcing thing has been known about. It has been debated. It was just usually the Globers saying, hey, this doesn't work on the AE map. And then flat earthers generally never really having an answer other than these few that I'm giving. And I knew about it back then too, but I was just sort of unconcluded in a way. I mean, I didn't have like a rebuttal other than maybe a lensing effect, but it was a point that never really was answered for the AE map.
I mean, the what happened sociologically, I'm not even using that as like some proof of anything. I'm just like pointing out that like I've been in the flat earth space now for 5 years. I know you guys are much older than that in the space, but in the 5 years that I've been here, until the 24-hour sun, the TFE thing happened, no one was just categorically saying that anyone who questioned that it happened was like, they're just not in touch with reality, because now that's what everyone's saying. Anyone who questions that it is happening is almost painted in these circles as if they're just like they're off the pale. Whereas if we take what I said before, if just the arcing of the sun in the opposite direction in and of itself in the southern hemisphere is pretty much the same as seeing the 24-hour sun, then that should have just been the position. If people were all being consistent, that should have just been the position from them. But
I hear you, but I would say that this would also play into like the theory that if the AE map is sort of like a deception 2.0, just like people get very zealotrous, or very, is that a word? Zealotrous. They have a lot of zeal and zealotry for the globe. People did that for the AE map. It was like their next favorite baseball team, and all the zealotry. And then especially like on that 24/7 Flat Earth server, it was always known as being pretty culty, and so it was one of those things that the way the sun arced in the south, that was usually either ignored, or people were just like either banned or laughed at, or Globers were banned, or it was some kind of chaos, you know what I mean? And it was never really addressed. I hear what you're saying. I mean, I don't think it's the same, like the arcing of the sun and actually the 24-hour sun. Obviously, they're different, but it clearly indicates the 24-hour sun effect. And the thing is, there are people back then, like if you know who Kazra is, for example, back in like 2018, he said he realized the AE map was completely problematic, threw it out, and then he's been on a dual pole. But that was just more rare. It seems like a lot of the circles were still sticking with the AE map because it was kind of being like promoted, or we got to tell people this is what the truth is. You know what I mean? It was always kind of like a movement in a way of people, and kind of, but I do hear what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, but these were things that were present then too. So they've always been there.
I'm just saying, like, because there's a lot of stuff that's, I'm open to it being 24 sun being a deception, or anything being deception, simply because, partly because partly because of my own ignorance. I don't understand the geography and how that relates to the stars and the celestial stuff enough, really. So, but it is good faith. I mean, I'm doubting it not because I'm trying to be mean spirited or hate on people. It's just like I'm open to anything. So it is what it is.
Well, I don't think one comment you said, like, I don't think anyone who thinks TFE fake is necessarily completely like off the rocker or insane or anything. Other people might say that or have said that, but I mean, I guess like I would think I don't know if percentage is still in here. He kind of indicated something to that effect, basically saying that I think he was saying like in something to the effect of like, in his opinion, by this point, if people, you have to think about like, okay, so if it's a real phenomenon, and if people are denying it, then I guess you could say they're out of touch with reality, because it is reality. So maybe people are saying that or whatever. And like I think he was just saying that. But I know that you're indicating that other people say that too. It wasn't just percentages comment.
Yeah, it's just a sentiment that I've noticed. Like I'm just genuinely what I've noticed. I'm not trying to like fucking. It is what it is.
No, but there's people who question it or are on the fence about it. I mean, I don't know what percentage. I would say maybe even in here, like there's maybe only a few that really assert that it's fake, but there's probably like 5% or 10, maybe not 10%, maybe 5 to 7% that people that either just question it or think it might be fake or it's not there. I don't really think it's like that anyone who has a position is like insane or anything. I mean, if none of us have been there, it's kind of like a analysis of the evidence that we can go off, without having been there ourselves.
Yeah,
and people, yeah. I mean, I understand if people question it and whatnot. I mean,
yeah. And it's like I understand what you're saying, right? I mean, it's completely plausible. I could even say in some way likely that after the globe fails, they would have some fail-safe way of like putting people back in that camp or transitioning them to some other. So the AE map could be that deception. That seems, from a zoomed out perspective, again, not knowing too many details, that seems in some ways even plausible, I could say. However, at the same time, they don't make it easy for people to like. They don't make it easy because they don't have like. Imagine if you were in charge of the powers that be, right? How easy would it be for you to set up a very clear live stream year round? Of course, people would say that's fake, right? But you could do different things to make it, like to various degrees, make it more and more convincing, right? Like you could easily set that up. Like if you or I were in that position, setting up a live stream there where you could just clearly see it every time it happened, it would just again, not conclusive because people could always doubt it, but it would just be a lot more convincing. That's all, subjectively speaking.
I do hear you. I would even say to this day, they're still somewhat limited. Like, dude, there should be like Discovery Channel should be like flying drones in Antarctica and be like, look at the 24-hour sun. And we were talking about that before they went. Like, why isn't that a thing? And that leads people more to question whether there's a 24-hour sun. When, Discovery and all that, they do ones in the north. They show 24-hour suns and documentaries, but the south is like strangely elusive in all these ways. Someone else is trying to jump in. If you want to jump in, I just wanted to say real quick. I mean, I don't have to go on long with this, but because I hear everything you're saying. I think for me, like I've never been to Antarctica. I have been to the southern hemisphere region, like I've been south of the equator, but I've never been like in South America and so on. But I've never been to Antarctica. So, the reasons I think there is one there. Number one, the video evidence. I went through that pretty much live on here, where I was, finding a bunch of videos, bringing them. We were looking at them, analyzing, and everyone probably will analyze things differently, but I have looked at a ton of footage from Union Glacier and also Mount Vinson, which like they take a short airplane ride from Union Glacier to this mountain, which they say is the highest mountain in all of Antarctica, Mount Vinson. And there's another little camp up there, and there's like video from them being at the top of that. It's like this huge overlook. Anyway, so I've looked at just tons of footage, not only from there, but other places too, like obviously McMurdo and the other camps and stuff too. So, and I mean, to me, I also like not only like one of the ways I analyze all that is like the body language of the people in those videos, like bloggers and vloggers, like, are they lying? Are they, et cetera. Now that might be somewhat subjective to me, like the way I perceive their body language, but I'm saying that's like just the video evidence overall, which includes body language, all the videos, where they're posted, how they're posted, the whole thing, just the evidence, the video evidence that currently exists, let's say at Union Glacier and what the sun does there. So that's a whole thing, which I went through it live on here, and it's like the more and more I found, the evidence was better and better. I think I was even saying on here that like out of 0 to 10, I thought it was like a 7 or 7.5 out of 10, or like a 7 out of 10 of everything I had found, and then them going like boosted it up, obviously. But I mean, I haven't been there, so there's still kind of like just how good the evidence is. But anyways, there's that, and then the sun arcing in the south, like I've said, like to me, it just kind of came together more of just having more evidence for the 24-hour sun there, and then knowing the way the stars move, and then because the stars arc the other way too, and the sun, the Tropic of Capricorn is on the same, like there's stars that are on the Tropic of Capricorn. So the stars are arcing the other way as to what the Tropic of Capricorn is, and then the sun path arcs the other way too. So I think for me, when I combine the video evidence of that site, in addition to obviously like knowing Whitsitt, I mean, dude, I read Whitsitt's body language when he did his stream. Like one of his streams he did where he was like, he hadn't slept. He was like, I am in Antarctica. Like, dude, I mean, everyone can analyze it differently. To me, there was truth saturated in what he was saying. And that's just my subjective opinion. I don't expect anyone else to be like swayed by that. To me, that's not like the biggest thing though. I don't just go off like trusting one person or anything like that. So it's not like that's the biggest thing, but it just is part of it. It's part of the video evidence category. And him, live streaming from there. So I'm just saying, I mean, I'm being honest, I've never been there. So it's like video evidence, the way the path of the sun and the stars moving the south, the video they showed where they were in Punta Arenas looking south, and seeing the sky lit up, like the whole southern sky was like blue and lit up. So anyways, it's just a lot of those factors. Cause I mean, I'm just telling you like what I, go off, but I don't expect everyone else to analyze the video evidence or that they've seen the same video evidence I have. I don't expect everyone else to consider the arcing of the sun and the GPs and all those things. And therefore, if people question it, it can make some sense to me because there is such limited access and even to this day, somewhat limited footage of that region.
I'm saying, like, even
Compared to what it
without them being, there's still ways that they could fake it temporarily, even without Witsit and Jed and all these people being in on it, right? I mean, that's also a possibility. I'm not by default claiming that they are shills. Of course, like, that being said, I mean, we have everyone has like this relationship with people, somewhat seemingly friendly, cordial relationship with other people on the internet. But unless you actually genuinely know the people in person, anyone could be a shill. I could be a shill, so it is what it is.
Okay, I mean, I hear you, but you mean like, okay, them either faking it, or you're saying if they put a fake sun in the sky and they actually tricked them?
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of what I was alluding to by saying, like, can't they just have? How easy would it be to just have a live stream like every year? Like, just like not every year, like just literally like all the time, just constantly, just there, well documented, like fucking the highest definition footage that you could get, just constantly there. It would be so easy. It would cost them nothing. It could cost the powers that be nothing.
You know, when I watched the videos of the 24-hour sun when it first happened, to me, it looked exactly like what you would expect on a flat Earth. They were tracking a moving sun across a stationary land, just as the same way that camera would have tracked an airplane, cloud, bugs, whatever, moving across the sky. It tracked the sun in the same way. That's exactly what I would have expected.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I'll rule if you see. Is it cool if I call you I'll rule? It's like your original name.
It's my.
But yeah, it's like your original name with it. This is the sun path in the north and south. See how it's like symmetrical as well. So those are like chart graphs that show the sun path being symmetrical in the north and south and having that equatorial. So I mean, it does seem to be the sky functions that way, which would completely make sense that there is a 24-hour sun in the south. I mean, in terms of them putting up a fake sun, that they even tricked those guys, like tricked MC Toon and McKeegan. I mean, dude, that's a steep hill to climb to try to claim that. Well, like they got. No, I hear you on MC Toon. I know, but I'm saying if MC Toon like believes it's a globe and then thinks there is one there, and then he got tricked. I mean, dude, like I guess like that is an extreme. I mean, we talked about all this before they went. We're like, well, what if they fly them into like some other region and they don't know they flew into, through some opening or whatever, and they flew into. There's all kinds of like ideas. But I'm saying if they even like fooled MC Toon. I mean, I know Jaren like burned paper with like a magnifying glass. Granted, I guess you could say it's fake, or like we'd have to verify. But I mean, if they put a fake sun in the sky, like they'd have to replicate that. Apparently, people get sunburned there, so you'd have to replicate that. I mean, to heat the region and to feel the heat of the sun on your face, kind of thing. I mean, what kind? If it's a fake sun, and then lastly, if you think of an AE map and you're trying to compare it to that, the arc of the sun, if it was making larger concentric circles and the Tropic of Capricorn was like a huge broad circle, then from 80 degrees south, it would look completely different. Like it would rise north of east and it would set north of west, and it would stay very low on the horizon because you're just looking at it, just going around like the outside of a merry-go-round. Whereas what the sun actually does is like, from 34 degrees down to 13, like it's actually just mirrored 80 degrees north in terms of the way what it does in the north, but it's in the south, 34 degrees elevation angle when the sun's in the north, and then 13 when the sun's in the south. So I'm just saying, like, there's no part of the sun path that even matches what the AE would be. So the only way, if they put a fake sun in the sky, they would have to literally block off the real sun with like a massive wall or something that their airplane would have had to fly through. They would have to block off the real sun and then put a whole fake circling sun in the sky that burns paper and that replicates. So I'm just saying that's a pretty extreme leap of what could be, if someone was to say that, or like a lot that they would have to consider as happening.
I'm just wondering, like, why the three options have to be AE, globe, or wraparound or dual or whatever, like something like that. Like, why can't it just be that they've changed the distances of continents and they've changed the way they're the way they not wrap in a Pac-Man sense, but just like a wrap around something. Like it could just be like some other layout, right?
Yeah, dude, I'm not saying I know like what the whole map of the Earth is or anything. I mean, the thing is though, like you have the equator. I mean, you would agree though, like you have North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia. Like, would you kind of agree there's like three main and then how those fit. I mean, obviously they put them on the globe the way they do. And then I mean, because we're just trying to match like some of the understandings of how the continents work. Because I mean, you can fly around the world, so I mean, there's some number of hours you get here from there, and and then there's
I should be able to say yes to that, right? That seems so innocuous, and the reason I can't say is simply because I'm not. I mean, obviously, I kind of believe that, but I can't even like say that with full confidence simply because I'm lazy and I've not really done the due diligence. Like, I'm not like traveled to every continent. I'm not like tracked the direction I'm going. Okay, this is actually like completely cut off from that else. This is not one landmass. This is another landmass. Like I would, in order for me to actually truly honestly answer yes to that, I would have to do the work myself. But I believe that that's the case. Yeah, I pretty do.
No, I hear you. I mean, we all have just been local. That's why, like, I find it interesting. Even people who cling to the AE map, it's like, what really is fueling that? Like they haven't gone out and measured the Earth. So is it just like another baseball team to just like root on? And that's kind of questionable in general. I'm not questioning people or saying that they're questionable. I'm just saying like, how can it be that people would just be like, yeah, it's this thing, even though like they really don't know or haven't actually verified it? Which is why I was always kind of neutral on the AE map. I mean, I've talked about it and used it over the years as a blueprint for the seasons and the sun and stuff. Because I mean, it's useful of the tropics and how the sun moves in the north and the south. And I mean, there's certain things about it, but I never claimed that it was like the map. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think the reason people are saying like globe, AE, dual pole, planar, or I guess concave, if you want to bring that in, but is because I don't think anyone's like come with any. Like, let's just leave concave out since it's so low represented, really, and there's like no evidence of curvature upwards. Anyways, if we leave that out, globe, AE, or dual pole, I think the reason is that it seems like those are the only three that are even in the picture for how the continents could be laid out with the sky and with the distances, like even within range. Like, I mean, can you even think of a fourth other than concave?
The reason I can't, again, because of my ignorance, because I've not personally done my due diligence of like going like, again, like in order for me, for example, in order for me to know that like even something that's innocuous is like, this is a continent, it's completely cut off from the other landmasses by water. I would literally need to go and like fly around in a plane myself, know exactly where I am, and then just like, oh, that's water all around, or cut off from other. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but obviously I do believe that these continents exist. I'm not, but at the same time, I can't positively assert it.
Dude, that's the biggest psyop of all, dude. Like, none of these continents even exist. Like, there's something insanely trippy. Like, the only thing that exists is what renders to you, and it's like you think you're flying to Brazil because I don't know. That's a beyond wild.
I'm not even saying that. Like, not if
the Earth is a psyop, just all of it. The continents. I don't know. That's a trippy.
Not saying
that's
that.
funny.
I'm saying the continents in the sense of like that this continents are technically like islands, right? So like in order for me to know that they're cut off from the other land masses, I would have to like in order to be truly a like in order for me to know that they're cut off from the other land masses, I would have to like in order to be truly assert that, I would have to go and see that for myself. But I do believe it. I believe that they are.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point because like you can be in like Brazil and you can walk all around the land and you can do things, measure things, but once you leave South America, where are you going? Like this map I'm posting right here, it's just a very basic like, this square map. I don't know which projection this one is, but this one. But like, yeah, if you're in South America there, like once you leave and go out in the ocean, like where are you really going? Like what are the distances? What are the directions that are actually going to the other continents? So I do hear you on that, which gets down to like, okay, if we agree, if we don't go totally like all of Earth is a psyop, if we agree there's people living in North America, people living in Central America, South America, Africa, etc., all around the world. That there's, unless we just go on like all of Earth is a psyop, and
I'm not saying that. I'm just
yeah.
I'm just saying I don't know that. I believe that. I'm just making it clear. That's the only reason I brought it up. I believe that those continents exist. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if we agree that all these are places that exist that you and I could go to and meet up for coffee in any place around the world, tomorrow basically you and I could catch a flight and meet in any place other than like maybe certain places that are like you can't just fly to Antarctica without those special trips, but that we could go to any place basically as long as we have the passports and whatever. Meaning that these are all real places. Well, then there's the question, like, okay, well, then how are they generally laid out? Like, is there any layout we know at all? And it does seem like Canada's next to United States,
Yeah.
Mexico is south of Canada, South America seems south of America, and that's what I was saying. So you got that whole stretch. It does seem like Europe is a thing. Africa certainly seems south of Europe with the Mediterranean Sea and all that. And then you have like the whole Russia, China, Asia's, Indonesia, and Australia. So
Yes,
it's sort of
right.
like, it's interesting. It talks about the 4 pillars in some of the ancient scriptures. I mean, that's like potentially 3 pillars, and maybe the 4th one's underwater or something. But if we know that those are laid out like that, so then we have the North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, those 3 sections. So if we agree that those are like generally north and south of each other, well, then how are those laid out? And the AE map spreads them out. So you have the North Pole and then the continents like spokes of a wheel, those 3 I just mentioned, coming out from the center. Or the kind of dual pole type equal area azimuthal projections seem to put, all of those more kind of parallel to each other, where the 3 southern points of the South America, South Africa, and Australia are all pointing to a continent like Antarctica rather than being spread out. So instead of those 3 points being spread out from the center of an only northern center, now you have 2 poles where the 3 southern things of those are all pointing towards one continent, and then the northern ones are all pointing towards the northern. Then you would have the Polaris in the north and the Sigma Octantis with the star rotations and the straight line at the equator. So that's why, but yeah, that one might involve like a wraparound type effect or some kind of transport, that's the issue with that one, or one of the things, the dual pole. And then the AE has the issues of like the greater distances in the south, like there's dramatically longer distances when you spread them out from the north like that. So you get that different effect. And then you get the equator would be a circle. And there's several issues with that. There's the radius of a circle doesn't match what it would be like. I know I've been talking a long stretch here, but like if the circumference is it's a separate thing. But if there's an issue with that, okay. If you have if the distance of the equator is 24,901 miles, then the radius on a flat plane is 4,000 miles from the equator to the North Pole. But they claim that the distance is 6,200 miles, 6,210. And you could verify that. And if you just went from the equator and traveled yourself up to like 80 degrees north, you could get at least most of the way, that it is more than 4,000 miles. And if it is 6,200 miles, then the equator on an AE map cannot be 24,901 miles. It would have to be significantly more. And you'll hear Bev say this argument because he was in here. I told him about this, and then he got on it and started saying it or whatever. He's mentioned it, that it would have to be more than 2 pi or whatever the radius of a circle is how he describes it. But that becomes into question. So then that means that even if the AE was a thing, the circumference of the equator would have to be like, it's like 36,000 miles or something. It's like way more miles. I forget the exact number that the distance of that would have to be. So that would be huge different distance. And then also the equator is a circle, whereas the sun makes a straight line and so on. So anyways, I'm just saying those are, when you do the AE map, you get the greater distances in the south. You get that distance problem with the circle on the circumference, because the globe describes that as an arc length along the surface of the ball, the 6,210, whereas on a flat Earth, when you flatten it out. So there's that issue. And then there's the fact that the sun, then there's the arcing of the stars, the southern stars. Anyways, so I mean, I know I'm kind of going through those, like the dual pole, some of those, the AE, and then obviously the way they describe it with the globe. But you're asking why those 3 are discussed, and I'm kind of going through them. But other than concave, I mean, is there even any conceivable way? I know you're saying like if you you don't really know once you leave that continent where you're really going. I hear you on that, but yeah, you see why? I guess that's why people are talking about.
I mean, so in order for I think like a real good test would be, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but if there was a way of doing dead reckoning, like a straight line without reference to any other external thing, but just knowing that you are going in a straight line. I heard Dave Weiss once say that if you spun a gyroscope on its side, you'd be able to know if you're deviating from dead reckoning. I don't know if that's true or not, if that's a valid mechanism, but if there's some mechanism like that where all you know is I am going in a straight line, then I think a lot more clarity could be gained about the layout of things. But insofar as they're following compasses or like other external reference systems, I'm not sure. Like we could, without beyond a shadow of a doubt, establish like where things lie in relation to each other. beyond like, oh, if I go left here, I'm gonna end up here or something like that. Something
Yeah.
vague.
No, I hear you. But if we bought our own airplane or chartered our own flight and we flew from like the east side of South America and we went as straight as we possibly could over to Africa, I mean, do you think we could fly in a straight enough line to at least give some idea of where Africa is in relation to South America? Because I mean, that's conceivable that you can do that, like with your own jet, your own plane.
Yeah, if there was a mechanism of like maintaining, again, the dead reckoning relatively, accurately, like within a few degrees of error or something, I think then you could really get a clear picture of like, yeah, sure. I mean, another thing which has gone out of the conversation since, I mean, it used to be talked about a lot is like the kind of test of the globe, or like if you two people start at one point in Antarctica and then they go in opposite directions, how long does it take them to meet again? And yeah, I mean, like that would also, I mean, like that would show something, I guess, about the distances. Nothing super conclusive about any model. I guess it would, if it took too long, it would probably debunk the globe model, I suppose.
I think the future moving forward would be to adopt the framework that I've created, because that's how you really only would create a new consensus upon actually having a referent in the world towards what you are measuring and working with.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a crew that could, like what you're saying, be able to, track and measure distances and plot the stars as you're doing it, you could probably, it might take like 6 months and $10 million, but to hire everybody and to do it all, or more if you're buying your own plane. But I mean, you could pretty much independently map out the Earth yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
With a team. I mean, it would take some.
You need a decent like investor to make it happen. But again, the fact that
not necessarily. You actually just need to build a framework of science, which I have done, and then you need to get together as a group and start to build it out as a collective. Eventually, you can get funding for things. I would think so. That if it gets established as, for example, a non-profit organization and so on and so forth, you have there's a lot of grants that can be applied to get funding. And eventually, even maybe you'll just have donors who contribute large sums of money so the studies can be done. But it requires of us what we could do, whether or not what side of the fence you're sitting on, or if you don't even think there's a fence, the shape of the earth, and this institute seeks to provide or satiate the need for data upon the happenstance of the world, because it seems to be driving conflict. So there's very many. It should actually be easy, but we should know what and where to go, what to create in order to continue with this stuff. Yes, you can use a plane, Geo, but without this institution, and if it is like how I've heard, it's been speculated about on here, then likely that plane just gets shot down. So if it is a publicly known scientific body that people look to, and also you have a viewer base, they cannot suddenly go and murder you live.
Yeah, I think for that, it would have to be one of two things. So the way I see it right now, the world is pretty crazy, like everything that's going on. And it seems like they do have tremendous control over a lot of things with the, passport system and the vaccines and everything going on, right? To just the whole control of the world. Now, if there was a group that was really funded and actually doing a lot of these tests, if you think that the controllers would just come kill you, then it would just be game over, right? They would just come slaughter you, crash your plane, poison your family, whatever, poison you and your family, some insane thing, right? Or just use a drone to shoot you with a bullet out of the air, or just anyone on the team, if there's 50 of them, just kill them all, right? Now that would be a lot. I understand why somebody would even be concerned about that, because if it depends on how conspiratorial or evil you think these people are, or the entities that are doing this larger deception. And if they're that evil, why wouldn't they just use drones to do a sniper bullet and shoot you in the head? And if there's 40 people on the team, just do that, and they all die, and they try to cover it up in some weird way. Well, if anyone's going to live in that fear, then yeah, that's concerning. And I guess that would just be game over, because you would either think you're going to just get killed, or that or that you just wouldn't do it because you would think you would get killed. It is definitely a test, like on a spiritual level, I would say, of like either paranoia or just being actually in line with the truth. Because the other way you could see it is that if there's a group doing what you're saying, and if they're doing everything legally, right? Nothing's illegal. There's no drug running, nothing illegal at all. It's all legal, but they're doing this. That's where like the law comes in, because then the controllers basically would have to break the law. Like they would have to come shoot you or kill you in some crazy way. And so, yeah, I mean, this is kind of a larger, I've thought a lot about this. That's why I'm responding lengthily a little bit about it, because it is a question that anyone would have to ask if something like that's happening, on a larger scale, more than just 50 or 100 people talking on a live stream, or something, if you're actually doing real world work. And I guess what I'm getting at is that if you see it from the perspective of truth will win, and light and goodness, and there is the law to at least keep, have some buffer line, because like I said, they would have to break the law by coming and killing you or doing something crazy. So the law maybe has a spiritual protective in some way nature to it, or it could play that way. And there is the conception that a group, even if very well funded, and even who was getting the word out, even doing media and stuff, would actually not be stopped. And they actually would be able, as long as they did everything legally, once again, nothing illegal, so they can't get popped on something illegal, that if they're doing it, that the controllers of this world actually could not stop them. Which I know sounds like it's like Superman walking through a field of bullets or whatever and just being able to dodge every bullet. Like, I realize the extent, and depends on what level of kind of paranoia somebody might hold that they're going to get killed or whatever. But my main point is just to say that it is conceivable that, the larger intelligence of this realm would allow for a group who is doing all good and who is not breaking the law to actually do all these tests and things that would be needed. Because otherwise they would just take us out, right? There would be no chance. And if that's the ending, then there's just no chance. So, I mean, it's either there is a chance and there's a bridge to being able to do this, or it's just there's no chance, and either they'll kill us or we don't even try because we think they'll kill us, And for this to come out and for the paradigm to shift, seems like we're the ones to do it. And there's no time like the present. The last 10 years are for a purpose. I don't think it's just random that that this is all happening at the timing. So it's something I think everyone's going to have to think about.
Gio, have you ever thought about the possibility that the government has kind of by purpose planted flat Earth? I mean, that it's really a globe, but they planted flat Earth to identify those who are kind of against them and are brave enough to stand up and say, okay, it's all fake, and to get basically like internet traces on those people who are not agreeing to the government. So as a how do you say, as a kind of a marker, like the marker that you put in blood to trace some specific cells, like it's a flat Earth markers to trace those people who are capable of doing these anti-government stuff.
Of course, that's always a risk.
I think the QAnon psyop would have been a better candidate for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, Snooze, like the general conception of how you're thinking of it, but I mean, are you then saying that that it would be a lie that all the ancients had a flat Earth, stationary planar Earth cosmology? Because are you then claiming that all of those were made up or something? When you look at the Vedas, the biblical, the ancient Chinese, the Norse, the Mayans, the Aztecs, when you know like the ancient shamans as well, if you know the shamanic worldview, and they're working with some of the highest intelligent plants in this whole realm, and they have a whole where they have the upper world, the middle world, which is a plane, the physical plane, and then the underworld's like a 3-layered system. So I mean, I think what you're saying, like, I hear what you're saying, the idea that it was just some psyop to do that. But is that what you're also saying? Is that all of ancient humanity was made up or something?
No. I mean, it's absolute. In my opinion, it's absolutely plausible that the ancients had these opinions because they did not travel that far, and so it totally makes sense that you say, okay, we are living on a flat Earth here where I'm living, and the sun is arcing around me, which was the opinion of for example the ancient Babylonian and so on, that they say, okay, sun arcs, sun stays the same distance all the time, but it's flat because they have never traveled that far, that they at end communicated at the same time, so that they know, okay, here it's dark, but you are on the bright side, and sun is over your head and not over mine. But I think you if you want to pull up these kind of psyop, you have to make it plausible enough so that people are jumping on it. So if it's directly from the very beginning totally ridiculous, that no one would kind of eat that poison. But if you say, okay, it's somehow compatible with the Bible, it's somehow compatible with ancient opinions, it's not that easily locally refutable, so maybe we plant that as a seed to find those people.
All right, so I kind of follow what you're saying. You're saying that the ancients may have thought it was flat because you think that they didn't know any better, basically, and they were just limited to their local thing. And then humans really did discover it was a globe. It's all genuine. It is actually a globe. But then in modern times, the Illuminati controllers or whatever just kind of decided, like, hey, we're going to do a purposeful fake flat Earth psyop, even though it really is outdated and it really is a globe. We're going to put this flat Earth thing out there to try to see how many people would be like against us or anti-government or rebellious, so that we can then track them as like cells in the system, the ones that are more. Is that what I'm just trying to steel man what you're saying? I'm kind of trying just to understand what you're laying out to the extreme of how you're laying it out, because you were linking this to like, well, I was talking about a group.
Proposing is conspiracy. It's just proposing and entertaining a conspiracy, and I think really it's just fear mongering at this point.
No, I hear his theory. No, that's a theory some people could have. I hear what he's saying. I'm just trying to steel man it. The thing is, he said it on the tails of me talking about a group that would be funded, that would actually be doing all these tests and experiments and things, and that they would allow us to do it, meaning they wouldn't come kill us, and that we actually could prove that the Earth is planar, stationary, and we would be able to just, like, think about how amazing that would be to have the money, the group, and we all we're just rocking it. We're just enjoying life, and just we're not getting killed, we're not getting messed with, we're just doing the truth and making it happen. So it was kind of on the tail of that. He was saying, well, hey, the other way, have you ever thought that it is a globe and therefore all the whole thing's a psyop? And the thing I would link it to that, Snooze, I hear what you're saying with that. I'll pass the mic, but what I would link it to that, though, if we had that research group, though, and we did all of that, and we did discover it was a globe, then all right, we finally done it. You know what I mean? Then you know, there can be concessions had. You and I'm looking else who's in here, Stefan and Shoebill and all you folks that have been telling us it's a globe. If we actually did discover it was a globe, and if you think it is, we should be able to with that research group. Then that would be what it would be. The other option is that it's not a globe. And then would they kill us or let us do it, as long as we were being legal and actually doing the research? That was really the topic point.
Yeah.
And you if you are really on the
Oh, you're breaking up.
Yeah, I got a call. If you're really like looking behind the curtain, and that was all like the government tried to hide it, don't you think that they would have taken some kind of actions to silence this movement? However, if you think, hey, the government wants that conspiratorial talking in the field, they don't want that Witsit and so on got silenced, that these YouTube influencer, they don't want to have them silenced. They want to have them as kind of crystallization point to actually find the people that are against them to eventually be capable of taking them down, maybe, for example. So because the thing is, as long as you know your enemy is busy and you know where he is, it's easy to deal with them. And as long as they are busy with a Psyop and stuff that you seeded in, they are searching for the wrong locations and stuff like that. They are also kind of deactivated.
Right, but don't
what I
you
mean?
see that that's what many of us think the globe is exactly that, a massive distraction to sell to confuse people as to where they even think they are, to then have an ultimate control over them.
I totally understand your point. I was just thinking like, hey, maybe the obvious, from your point of view, the obvious deception is not the actual deception.
Well, I hear you. I mean, these are all different views and they're worth working out. I would say that the thing is, though, is that flat Earth has been suppressed. I mean, in 2014, 15, and 16, it was kind of a free-for-all. Like, if nothing else, they were letting the algorithm just fly. And maybe you're right there. So, okay, there's a few ways to view this. Okay, from the perspective that the Earth is planar and stationary, that the ancients were correct, that it isn't a globe. Okay, there is then the idea from there that there was that whole December 21st, 2012, which a lot of the ancient calendars showed like a shifting point. There could be a genuine way in which that is a shifting of the cycles. We're moving out of this global era, and we're moving into what the future of humanity is. From the perspective that the globe has been a lie, several hundred years, maybe 1,000, depending on how long you actually think it's been going on, a deception. And if it's the end of a cycle from this perspective and we're coming out of it, then there could have been a natural, organic people looking into flat Earth in 2014, 15, because of that 2012 cycle shifting. Now remember, this is from the perspective that the Earth is stationary and planar. And then in 2014, 15, people started, oh, flat Earth, is the Earth not a globe? And then they find, Robotham, and they find these journals and writings, and they find the Flat Earth Society and all that. And then, and so on. Now, if that's organic, that people started looking into it, then there's the idea that that the controllers then thought, hey, let's co-opt it. It's becoming popular, the flat Earth thing. We already have all of our false information like planted in there, and now we need to co-opt it. So then they bring in certain characters and then they control it. And from this perspective, they maybe even let it go for a while, 2015, 16, 17, like, oh, let's kind of track it, see how many people, like you're saying, that could still be a thing that they're co-opting. But they did shut it down in 2018, 19. They did heavy censorship on YouTube and everywhere, to where now that already put a huge damper in people talking about it and everything. I mean, it's amazing how much they can do that. So they did shut it down, censored it quite a bit, and it's been relegated. And then they did with the algorithms, they changed it to where all you get is Professor Dave, and you're not going to get any good videos of Witzits or ODD or any of these good ones over the years. Like, you're not going to actually get the good stuff. You're going to get all of the debunkings and all that, and then even now they've suppressed a lot of these communities. In a lot of ways, to where we're, talking to, I mean, we get about 2,000 views a day total on here, but, it's like 50 to 100 people at any one time watching. So, I mean, they've kept it at a very low, and I mean, this server is pretty much the biggest one on the earth, basically. I mean, in terms of one server where everyone's here, like, I know, okay, there's YouTube channels for sure that have way more views than we do. There's the McToons, there's all that, right? And but I'm talking about like a community where there's, people talking about this all the time. Like, I mean, I know there's like the 24/7 one, but like they're on different servers, and I think there's really only about only a small handful of actual flat earthers in that group. It's mostly like people that come in on that politics server. So that's not really the same. I don't know what their views are compared to ours or whatever. And I know there's like
also this would be.
Anyways, I'm not trying to go off on that. I'm just saying, okay, even if this server is not the biggest one on the earth, it's within the top 5 or whatever of an actual community. I'm not talking about channels, because we don't get that many views total. I know that other channels, like YouTube channels, get way more views. But you know what I mean? A community of actually, people, talking and being together in this way that we are. If you know of another one, let me know. I'd like to check it out. If there's any other ones, I know the few that are out there. So anyways, they have kept, my whole point in that is they have kept it very, very suppressed, even after the 2015, 16. So I know that was long-winded. I know I went through that whole thing. That's just one whole layout. And we could give another layout, like the Earth is actually a globe, and that was the one you were saying. And then they planted this as a psyop. But yeah, I'll pass the mic. But if you see what I mean, like that's one whole layout to where they have suppressed it, they let it go a little bit, they co-opt it, suppressed it, and then link to that 2012 idea too of the shifting of cycles.
Yeah, you could also argue that they have just kind of pressed a bit to make it more plausible, and so because they could also just let these channel remove, right? I think that's absolutely no problem to let just them shut down all these channels. For example, like they are really censoring medical information on Discourse. If they really want to have flat Earth stuff removed, they could easily do it. But they didn't do it. They just make it more plausible, so that you see, okay, we get some pressure against us. And also the 24/7 server, maybe they just implemented it to be able to get the IP addresses of all these people who are against their state and so on. So, or against some specific opinion. So basically just honeypot for as crystallization point.
I hear you on that. Is that you're just saying from the perspective that the Earth actually is a globe and people did used to think it's flat, and then now they're just purposefully putting flat Earth out to try to kind of monitor people that will go against the mainstream, you're saying, or that would go against the kind of
I mean, it's not just flat Earth, right? The flat Earth is just a physical property. It's more about like this having the opinion that the state is lying against us, and being bold enough to publicly announce it and discuss about it, and have kind of these. I mean, from their point of view, this community here is a conspiratorial community. Yeah, you're grouping up, you're teaming up, you're trying to look behind the curtain and so on. So, if I would be the government, I would try to find a possibility to track you. And if I'm scaring you off the internet, I cannot track you. But if there is something where everyone is engaged in and everyone is agreeing on discussing about it, even if it looks very publicly available, then I can track you. Then I know which IP address it is. I know for many people, the real names are already publicly known without any government's, how do you say, influence, like with it and so on. So, but I think even the government does know your IP address, know your real name. That's absolutely no problem.
Oh, there's no question, dude. Yeah, I'm sure they know who I am. Obviously, we're all essentially tracked, and I have a cell phone and computers and everything. So yeah, I mean, there's no question. They know who I am and everything. They know who we all are. So yeah,
true, but
I mean,
tracking
the thing is,
anonymous mobile IP address or something like this is something, but tracking someone based on the content that they are publicly sharing, and this content here is, I mean, if you have just like, if you're sharing, I don't know, messages over an encrypted line, it's one thing. But if you're sharing stuff here in a public discussion center where everyone can track you, it's a different thing. More dangerous, I would say, for you.
Yeah, so you're coming at it. There's different angles we're talking about. It's just dramatically different. So like, from the perspective that the Earth isn't an actual globe, then we could then look at it all from that perspective. Like, yes, they're tracking who's talking about it. I'm sure they were aware in 2015, 16 that people started everything there and everything that's unfolded. The thing is, there's a bunch of my interests that are aware of what the governments are doing, in terms of the big pharma and the whole health thing. I mean, I'm aware of the GMO foods and a lot on a much deeper level, I think, than many are even aware, and the other chemicals in the environment and other things that are causing diseases and all of that level of it. And then the sacred plant medicines that I work with, I mean, they've made many of those illegal, like mushrooms and other things that have healing qualities. And I've been involved in communities and working with those, and many of the communities working to get them to be legalized and so on, and available, and shown that they are medicinal and so on. I've been involved. I mean, I went to a graduate school, which is a fully accredited graduate school. It's accredited by the highest level in the United States, but it's still like on the furthest stretches of progressive education at that fully accredited level of a grad school. Like, we actually there's a lot of programs at that school I went to, but I mean, we were, I had professors that were experts in psychedelic therapy and archetypal astrology. So the understanding of the astrological and how that links with these plant medicines and these psychedelic experiences. I prefer the word entheogenic experiences that people have, and so on. And one of the main professors there was involved in the research with LSD and other of these plant medicines. Well, LSD is semi-synthetic, but he was involved before the government made them illegal. So they certainly tracked him. I don't think he is part of MK Ultra or anything evil. He's a wonderfully loving person, but he was actually doing the research back then that was allowed to be done, and then they made all those things illegal. So I mean, they know him and what he's done. They know all of us of what we're doing. So I mean, the fact that I'm also talking about the cosmology, I'm sure for them it just puts me in a similar category. Like, okay, I'm aware of a lot of the health stuff. I'm et cetera, et cetera. It's just like the cosmology falls into probably some other larger category of all that. I don't know. I'm talkative tonight. Sorry. Go ahead. I know it's long-winded, but I'm just saying, like, I'm aware of all of those components of it. But from the perspective, I guess it's just you're viewing it from a different angle. You're viewing it that the Earth is a globe and that they planted all this, or the flat Earth stuff in particular, to try to like track who would go against them, basically, is what you're putting forth. Whereas the other entire perspective is that the Earth isn't actually a globe. And, it doesn't mean they're just going to come kill everybody talking about it. I mean, I think evil only has like certain allowances of what they can even do. That's why the good always wins. I mean, if they just had ultimate power, then they would just be able to squash us. But Frodo makes it to this in Lord of the Rings to throw the ring into the fire or whatever. It's like there's the good guys are able to get let through. Is kind of how it works with evil. Otherwise,
I
the
was
evil would
also
just dominate.
thinking, because when you were talking about the issues with the AE map and like the last hour or so about or 1.5 hours also like about flight routes, like I think also on the dual pole map there are issues with the flight routes, right? So specifically Hawaii is typically very problematic because you can basically reach Hawaii from LA, from Japan, from New Zealand or Australia, and there are, I think, actually multiple flights every day from the U.S. West Coast, from the Asian East Coast, and so on, and which is problematic. And I think also these sun paths of the dual pole dual pole map wouldn't really work, because that is this switch on the equinox from the northern hemisphere to the southern is, I think, on the dual pole basically doing this figure 8 move. It's going down then. So the last day was at the top and the next day is then at the bottom, but that is not how it's working, because the sun is 0.5 degrees in size. There is actually a day on equinox where both poles have 24-hour sun. So both see the sun circling around at the same time, which wouldn't work. I mean, the sun would need to split up and go both directions. And so I thought just you are onto something there, with these different comparison of these different things, and we're honestly discussing it. Really appreciated that. I was just thinking, like, could there be a different situation? I don't know, actually. It's not that I say, oh, it is a Psyop or so, but I was just thinking, like, maybe it actually was. Maybe this 2015 starting point was something that was done by the intelligence, and planted that to track people who are capable. That's really just an honest thought.
It's all good, but if it is so that the globe proponents are going to be the conspirators, if we actually move into establishing, let's say, an institute like this, then we got to remember to put that on the record. But what I really think is important here is that we should establish an institute for applied science. But with that doing, we need something steadfast in the ground of the institute. We need definitely to have an ethos. And I think that we would also need a valid reason establish the proponents advocated in the ethos, which I think is easily available. We can even use this the final experiment with Jaron, for example, changing his mind. That can even be used as an inspiration in a way, to say that, for example, this guy experienced it on his own, and so that is the requirement for many other too, that they need to get an experience on their own. But we have different. We have more in detail requirements for what, if it is conviction that is necessary in the end. We have different requirements for what that is. And then just focus on the ultimate goal of it all, which is to return to reality. Return to what actually is the case. So if one is just humble, open, and honest, if one is just open, humble, and honest, saying that one lives in a state of being disconnected and living as a recipient of television, has created this total distance from actually feeling what is the real case. It's very obvious that anyone who's not in contact with the thing itself would desire to finally, let's say, touch it again or have it for themselves. So I think this is morally very easy to justify in a genuine and grounded way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I hear everything you said, and I heard what Snooze, what you were saying too. You said that one point about the sun at the equator. We could pick up on that. I wanted to respond to that at some point too, but yeah, I don't quite know where. Okay, well, like Snooze, I mean, would you agree that, I mean, if there was a group that had a large amount of funding and you were given that you could be hired to be paid very, very well, maybe let's say double what you're being paid right now for a job you're doing now, and you could be on this team traveling the world, doing cool tests on physics, on accelerometers and gyroscopes and all the different aspects of it that would be done. If you had an opportunity, number one, would you want to be on that group, even though you believe it's a globe? Would you want to be on that group? And if the answer is yes, then that would mean that you'd either want to be on it because you want to confirm it's a globe, either for others so that others are not misled, quote unquote, or that people are not wrong in the world, I guess, that you could just show them, hey, it really is a globe. Look, we measured curved water and we showed how gyroscopes process over, driving over or flying over a curve and all that stuff, right? Or we went to, with enough money, you can build your own space agency, quote unquote, your own rocket company. Even if it's not a space one, you could build your own rockets, that you could send to extremely high altitudes and stuff with the legal ability to, of course. But so I guess the question is like trying to form it all in these different points we're bringing up. If there was that group, would you want to work with them and be paid double or triple what you're being paid now, first of all? And then secondly, if you would want to be on it, then that means that you'd either want to confirm it's a globe for X, Y, Z reasons, or you would want to be on the team that's discovering what the Earth really is. And all these questions that we may not have full answers for in terms of the whole realm would potentially be answered. Again, also linking back that the controllers wouldn't just come kill us, that they wouldn't just come gun us down or poison us. Okay, you'd have to incorporate that as long as we're doing it legally, I mean, you could do a legal research group. There's nothing, you can do that, but et cetera. So I'll stop there. But yeah, what do you think of all of that? And in terms of the quest of that?
But there are quite a few.
If the payment is good, I would be.
Oh, sorry.
That was just news. Yeah, you can go next. Sorry, just let him respond if you don't mind.
I was just saying, like, if the payment is good, and it's better than right now, I would definitely fully in. And I not because I want to show you nah you're wrong or so, and that's typically not the motivation that I have here when I anyway talking. the motivation is typically science and kind of also like analyzing the correct observations and so on, figure out new stuff. So this was always like a pressing thing for me. However, I chose not to go into the science direction because the payment is not good. So I'm at the moment working in a normal corporate as computer scientist. So being a physicist, and getting well paid, I would be totally in, sure.
Yeah. So okay. Well, just kind of
yeah. Could I just because I agree with Snooze, because I think that would be my motivation as well. Do these experiments, understand the equipment, analyzing the data, basically to learn science more than actually the shape of the Earth, if you know what I mean. That would be the biggest motivation.
And also doing these experiments, like for example, there were experiments like Cavendish and so on, but there are also other experiments. Like I already talked about that Philip Fagnoli experiment with a big lead ball and so stuff. So doing this nowadays and having it on camera, having it kind of really explained to the normal people, like so that it's really understandable what's happening, taking you with us every step, like what I'm doing here and so on. I think this I would really like to make physics and I don't know, also barometric pressure, all that stuff more possible to experience by normal people, like distributing the apps, how they can use the sensors of their phone, and so on. That would be really nice. Normal people, like distributing the apps, how they can use the sensors of their phone, and so on. That would be really nice. So like verifiable at home, something like this.
I do that. I use that quite a bit. I do quite a bit of hiking in the mountains in the summertime. So for navigating, I'm not just only using GPS. I also use the barometric pressure. So I sort of calibrate the barometric pressure gauge where I am, where I'm starting from, and I can use that as well, at least to get the height above sea level. So you can do this with
GPS is not that reliable in the mountains.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we'd have to do is the thing. So talking about this, like, for example, like, I hear what you're saying, Stefan, but like, yes, that would all be stuff to verify. But the thing is, like, even with like interferometry and Dayton Miller, like being able to actually replicate all of Dayton Miller's results and then have our own interferometers and to test them and work with them at different altitudes. There are just so many things that we've talked about over the years. And if we're able to work on all of these different areas, gyroscopes, interferometry. Now, from the idea of like replicating Michelson-Morley, replicating Dayton Miller specifically, even more so, I mean, dude, that's going to be a massive project. And whether it's 10 people doing it or 20 or 30, however many, and just linking back, I mean, if we thought that the Illuminati, as it were just going to come kill us, well, then, like I said, you're either just going to get killed or you just shouldn't even do it if you're just afraid that you'll get killed, because there's no way to do that really in a sneaky way. I mean, they've got track over our cell phones and emails. And I mean, unless you're going to actually try to hide from the government and get an interferometer and make your own airplane that you don't get, you know what I mean? And try to launch it up or do some crazy, I mean, you know, which you can't even do that. You can't make your own airplane. I mean, they'll just come take you out. So you can't, at that point, they will take you out if you're breaking the law. So what I mean is you can't just do some testing that's off the grid or illegal or whatever with their restrictions. So anyways, I'm just saying, like, it just, that part of it just links back. Like, number one, we have to replicate all of Dayton Miller's work, for example. And then it just links back to that idea, like, okay, well, how are the controllers or the Illuminati dudes, from the perspective that it's actually not a globe, how are they just going to let us do all these tests? Like, they know there's a research group, they're well-funded, and they're just doing all these tests. I could understand why somebody would question that. Like, why would they let you do that? You know, they would just come. But then it's like I said before, they have to break the law to come do something to us. And there's no way we can sneak it around them because we'd be buying things and doing things and all that. So it just kind of links it all back. But I mean,
right?
But another thing here is that if you want to do like a new Michelson-Morley or something like that, you need to understand the underlying physics before you actually do the measurements, don't you? I think that's a problem, like the lack of understanding and education within the different fields of science. Just
Yeah, but we're
doing
talking
the
about. No, I
just
hear you, but we're talking
yeah.
about doing tests that have never been done to the level, and some of these things that would verify whether Earth is a globe or not, and being able to actually do those. And that's a question, like, if globe earthers in this community would want to be a part of that, especially if they were paid very well, and to do, celestial navigation, measuring GPs and circles of equal altitude, measuring distances in the south between the continents, gyroscopes and airplanes flying across Antarctica, flying across the North Pole. I mean, trying to do a circumnavigation north to south, which is claimed to be you can do it on a globe. Can you do it on the Earth? Like doing that one, etc. All these things. And so there's just a lot of parts where, like, number one, could you do it without, without being taken out or whatever, number one. But number two, would globe earthers even want to be, or would they, who of them would want to be a part of that? And if so, then it just links back, like we were saying, they either would want to be a part of it because they'd want to discover maybe that the globe is false and these tests need to be done, or, that the globe is true. And then there's other science and experiments and things that would still, advance humanity, even if we found it was a globe after doing all these tests, which I don't think we're going to, of course.
Yeah, I think most globers, if they could make a livelihood and had the competency to do these measurements, experiments, and travel, whatever. Yeah, I think most, at least the people I know, would do that easily.
What do you think would fundamentally change if all of a sudden it was publicly revealed that the Earth is not round?
There'd be no more blind trust in the government.
No, but who trusts the governments today? Hardly anyone. I don't think it would.
Most
I
of the normies love the government here.
I would say it would be a massive shift in humanity, because the thing is, like, a lot of other lies, like, maybe if people think vaccines are poison, or the money system is a deception with the Federal Reserve and the whole reserve note banking with that, whether people think the military is corrupt, whether people think politics are corrupt, whether people think media is corrupt, any one of those things, it's not, Stefan, I think you're hot micing, or someone's hot micing, Elder Bear. People could question areas in those things, but it doesn't seem like any of those would actually shift, like, the paradigm as big as the Earth, I would say, because the Earth not being a globe it's not just one pharmaceutical company, it's not just one politician, it's not just one media group, etc. It is like the foundational worldview of the whole world, essentially, that's been promulgated through the schooling system. And so to me, it seems like there would be such a revealing of a corruption at a deeper level than humans even thought, than most people even thought was happening. And if that is the case, it seems like that actually would be like the liberation, I would say, in the long run, of humans. Like, what I think would happen in a very generalized sense, without being too long-winded, is that if enough scientists and logically sound-minded people saw tests and experiments that showed that the Earth wasn't curving, the motion, etc., specifically like physical measurements of the ground not curving, things like that, and if enough professionals saw that, there's the idea that really they couldn't keep the cat in the bag, basically, and that there would be a huge, and essentially there would be enough people that would turn their heads and say, okay, what is going on? It's not just one corrupt politician or one corrupt country or anything. There is a worldwide organization going on, and then I think it would wake enough people up to actually starting to dig into what is actually going on, basically, who's actually running, who's connected through. And potentially the sort of evil deceivers would be uprooted in some way, like dissolved of their power. Like, I'm not trying to say like a bloody war, but in some way there would have to be there could be a way in which enough people would, like enough regular people, as it were, civilians, would start to turn their heads and be like, okay, these are wolves in sheep's clothing, essentially. So we now have to figure out how the control to get to the root of it. Whereas right now, maybe enough people are just kind of obeying the authority of it all and not really knowing that there's this big of a systemic corruption going on at an organizational level far beyond, you know, what they think, which is individual countries and individual corporations, the way it is now.
I know there's a lot of people I've asked this question to, and a lot of them hit me with religion, and have not actually haven't got anything but religion.
Agree that we can get the elevation. Do you guys agree we can get the elevation of a mountain regardless of the shape of the Earth, and it will be a correct elevation?
From sea level?
Yes.
And recognition of the tremendous difference between.
You know, if that is a requirement for you.
Apps measuring angles to stars, that would have been known from day one by things that can happen. And that's some of the discussions around that. So.
I gotta be a bit.
You kind of roboted. You said you got to go. I think that's what he said. It's just the difference between the sky or how we see having some spherical aspect to it in some cases, possibly with like refraction. There's even like the idea that the ether actually has like a toroidal or like spherical dynamic to it. Because it doesn't always, I mean, even in some of the observations that can be interpreted as a sphere, it's not consistent in that fashion to always be in that way. So it's kind of I mean, there's the long distance observations, which completely don't work on a sphere. But then there are other ones where you can get certain drop or it can be below level or higher than level. Like you've seen the horizon when it warps up and down. And it goes both ways. So it's not like the Earth is going globe and then concave and then flat and then globe, concave as that horizon. So there are certain effects that can be, in some cases, cherry picked or interpreted in certain ways, the way distortions work. And the environment. So that's some optics are definitive in that way. So it's kind of I mean, there's the long distance observations, which completely don't work on a sphere. But then there are other ones where you can get certain drop or it can be below level or higher than level. Like you've seen the horizon when it warps up and there are certain effects that can be, in some cases, cherry picked or interpreted in certain ways, the way distortions work in the environment. So that's why that needs to be defined. And we need to be able to have a way to decipher the actual shape of the surface rather than only depending on optics, which I think most people at this point agree that to some optics are definitive maybe, or at least they're stronger in some people's eyes, but I don't think the optics are able to really bring a completion or like a finality or something that's like exclusive, especially something that would like shift the whole paradigm only through optics. Doesn't seem like that's really possible, perhaps with only optics. Sophia, were you trying to get in before?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, he was asking how they managed to convince people of the globe, right? But I just had a thought. It's actually a lot easier than you think. So you don't have to do any hostile takeover sort of thing. All they did, because you said it was like after the 60s, this thing started to expand so much. So all you do is you put a globe at the start of every movie, TV show, or news thing, and you have the media start using the word globe, and it spreads very quickly. So people, they won't